Welcome in, everybody, to a very special edition of The Pack. Myself, Eli Berkovitz, as always, here with special guest Aaron Nagler from Cheesehead TV. Everyone knows him, everyone loves him. Packers Twitter's favorite guy. Yeah,
I don't know, man. Feels like let's not start out by telling tales. I mean, some
yeah.
people
Let's
love me. Some
all right.
people love me.
Some
I'll
people,
go there. I'll go there.
educated people, but
There you go.
yeah,
I love the uneducated people though too. I
yeah.
love them all. It's all good.
No, the
All love.
uneducated people, that's where you get a lot of, your best entertainment and content is when you get some real uneducated opinions.
Fair. Very
Yeah.
fair.
So, Aaron, I think this is actually our first time doing any sort of show or podcast together, which
I think it
seems
is.
kind of crazy, but I'm very happy you're here. I'm very happy that of all the weeks, it's a pretty great one to talk Packers football. Anyone who knows Aaron or Corey Banky or Cheese.tv can probably recognize that Aaron is still in Green Bay right now, right across the street from Lambeau Field. Could not find a better spot to record. So, Aaron, before we get into anything specific, what was, going to Green Bay? Obviously, you're in Green Bay all the time, but the atmosphere this weekend, obviously at the game, after the game, must have just been chaos. So, what was that like?
Yeah, it's been an absolute dream kind of couple days here. I've been in town since Thursday morning. I leave tomorrow, Wednesday morning, and I mean, just under a week of just perfection. I mean, December, Lambeau, snowing, big win on a primetime stage, bunch of celebs in the house. I mean, it definitely had a playoff atmosphere all day long leading up to the game. And then the game itself, I mean, the crowd was amazing. Really electric stuff from basically kickoff to the final whistle. You really, it doesn't get much better than the last kind of like really 2 weeks
Yeah,
around Green Bay with the Packers from the Thanksgiving game in Detroit now through this primetime matchup against the Chiefs. And two games I think most folks did not think the Packers were going to be able to go in to either one of them and pull out a victory, but they've done so. And now, I mean, look, you got the Giants game on Monday Night Football, another one in front of the whole country. But this time, I think everyone's going to be expecting the
yeah,
Packers to win. That's going to be very different. That's a
yeah.
very different kind of vibe. But man, yeah, just kind of marinating in everything that's transpired over the course of the last 72 so hours. It's been a great time here in Green Bay.
Yeah, oh, not sure what I did there, but yeah, I actually won a raffle before the season for 2 tickets to this Chiefs game, and I was pretty ecstatic about it. And then having two brothers and my father that we all, watch all the games together, I just couldn't break up the group. So I ended up giving away those tickets. But you know what? I have a terrible record at Lambeau Field, so give them the win.
So you
I'll
did
watch it.
everyone a favor. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Like if you had gone to the game, clearly they would have lost. So shout out to Eli for the W. Got
Exactly.
it.
You're welcome,
Got it.
everybody. I sacrificed a real experience for all of you.
No
But
doubt.
now that you bring up the Lions, I mean, obviously two huge games, but between the two, like which one would you say is maybe the more impressive victory, going on the road in Detroit or beating the defending Super Bowl champs? I mean, both are
Yeah,
very
it's
tough.
that's really tough, and they are impressive for different reasons. I think with the Detroit win, just the short week, no practice. I mean, they had a handful of walkthroughs, right? And the
Yeah,
number of guys for, let alone contributed significantly. That's impressive in and of itself. But the Chiefs game, that's a legit one of the best defenses they'll face all year, and they certainly seem to control the game from the get-go. There was never really any sense that the Chiefs were going to run away with this or even
yeah,
catch up to the Green Bay Packers. If I had to choose, though, I'd probably say the Lions game, just because, again, the circumstances surrounding it, the short week, a really hostile environment against a team that absolutely clubbed them the last
yeah,
time they faced them earlier, and also a team that's basically owned them
yeah,
4 contests in a row prior to that, 5 contests in a row prior to that game. I mean, yeah, both very impressive. But playing at home, you have a little bit more control at the line of scrimmage, and you saw Jordan Love take advantage of that against the Chiefs
yeah.
as far as using his cadence to kind of figure out what they were trying to do pre-snap. Much tougher assignment in Detroit, I think, and they're both impressive. But if I had to
Yeah.
choose, I'd probably say the Detroit game.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's a good point. The way the Lions have really owned the Packers, ending their season last year, thinking, okay, week 4, we're going to get revenge and getting smoked in Lambeau in prime time. to kind of, get that like that monkey off your back kind of game where it's like, all right, we beat them, we could beat them. Like they're not going to be our issue forever. So that's obviously a huge win. But I love what you brought up with Love versus the Chiefs. I feel like that was by far, and not to be like, Love Rodgers, because everyone already is, but
Right.
I feel like that was the most we've seen him pre-snap kind of with Rodgers, really taking it down to the last second, really calling out the defense. Do you think that was LaFleur giving him a lot more freedom at the line, or him just kind of growing into it more?
I think it's a bit of both, although I think they've always got cans. It's not like he was like drawing stuff up at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
Rodgers was really doing kind of those last few years. But I think he's always had freedom. We've seen him use canned stuff before, but I
Yeah.
do think part of the game plan was about giving him options. The idea that he was going to use his cadence to get, a linebacker to step forward or a safety to maybe drop down a hair early.
Yeah.
Okay, now I've got a better picture of what you're trying to do. I'm going to make adjustments or I'm going to get into another play. I do think there was obviously more of that, but I also say, I asked Matt about this specifically on Monday, and
Hmm.
he indicated that, there was a specific play where they didn't have any can on, and Jordan literally got them into max protection and took advantage
Wow.
of the defense. So it just feels like a product of, yeah, Jordan's played a lot more football at this point, especially comparative to the first time he faced the Chiefs. And I
Yeah.
think they also, Matt did say this offseason they had pretty considerable, amount of time put into, okay, we're going to face a number of teams that do like to use a lot of different kinds of pressure and like to maybe get after the quarterback a little bit more
Yeah.
aggressively, whether it's the Vikings, who they've already seen, and the Chiefs Sunday night, and probably the Giants on Monday night. So there was a concerted effort of being able to give Jordan more tools and ways to kind of combat some of that stuff that, look, the Vikings game probably didn't go as well as they'd hoped, but it certainly looked like Jordan was in command on Sunday night against the Chiefs.
Yeah, it was really awesome to see, and like you mentioned, with the offensive line and all that. I mean, they had 2 sacks. The Packers gave up 2 sacks, and the Chiefs' defense is so good. Where I mean, even 2 sacks is not a bad game. One of them being on that last drive where Love basically just took
Where
the
you're
sack.
like, don't throw it, let the clock run,
Yeah,
take the sack. Maybe
exactly.
not as deep as you took it, but yeah, take
Yeah,
that sack because you want the clock
that's
to run.
exactly. I got a bit nervous, and I'm like, we know Carlson is, not automatic at this point. So that sack made me a bit nervous, but yeah, to take the 40 seconds off the clock, you got to do it. So it was a good call. But I think, like, especially for me, I've definitely been very critical of Matt LaFleur for a little while now. But I think these last few weeks, really starting versus the Chargers, maybe even versus the Rams already, but for sure the last 2 weeks, I feel like his play calling, he is just so locked in right now, making it so much easier for Love on the young weapons, the young receivers, and also the amount of motion we're seeing and the fact that Love
Lots
is
of motion,
controlling the
right?
ball. So
Yes.
much motion. And I love it. I just love it's making it that much harder for the defense. Even if they have to think 1 extra second,
Right.
that's an advantage
Or
right there.
or just put their eyes in the wrong spot,
Yeah.
like whether it's like adjusting pre or post snap, just taking one false step can create a lane or give your back or wide receiver the ability to maybe, make a guy miss or gain a couple extra yards, which, hey, look, they had a couple of drives in this game that were like epic 10, 12, 15
Yeah.
play drives, and some of that is because they kept staying ahead of the sticks. And
Yeah.
you see a gain of 4 and you don't think that's a big deal, but in a drive where you want to get into 2nd and 6 or 3rd and 2
Yeah.
rather than sitting in 3rd and 10 plus, that little bit makes all the difference. And I
Yeah.
thought a big component there was AJ Dillon and his ability, because look, they're not a road grading team on the ground, right? They're not
Yeah.
guys up front who are going to blow you off the ball, create a bunch of kind of lanes for AJ to run through. But what they did is give him an ability to at least get ahead of steam. And then when he did hit contact, he still gained yardage.
Yeah.
And to go from what should have been a 3 yard gain to a 5 or 6 yard gain, again, puts you ahead of the sticks and lets Jordan be able to operate, and Matt as a play caller operate in a really kind of welcoming environment rather than, oh gosh, here we go, it's 3rd and 11 again. And
Yeah.
the chips against that, especially against that defense, are really stacked against you.
Yeah, no, you're getting in those positions for sure against the Chiefs. It's not going to work out. But AJ Dillon, I mean, the way he started the season to what he's done the last few weeks, I mean, I know we always say Dillon in the cold weather, but just it's more, I think it's more than that. He just looks better.
It's
Like I'm
more than
saying,
that, but don't you think there's something to it as
oh, for
well?
sure.
I mean,
I also do think like the fact that he's pushing through contact And like, because before it was like he was falling down before contact. Now
Right.
he's gaining yards after contact.
Before contact,
So, yeah,
pre-contact, yes. I
pre-contact.
think PFF has that tracked
Yeah,
pre-contact tackle. Yes.
exactly. Yeah. So it's really nice to see that from Dylan. But what I also love to see, because of Aaron Jones, and like you said, we're going to rush for 150 yards every game. The fact that LaFleur, even when they were leading throughout the whole game and the second half,
Mm-hmm.
he allowed Love in the short passing game to kind of substitute for some of the run game, which I thought was brilliant because Dylan, if you ran him 25 times and every first and 10 a run, every first and 10 a run, it would
Right.
be 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8. He was doing these short passes. And like you said, even if it's 4 or 5 yards, 2nd and 6 is a whole other world than 2nd and 9. Like, then you can
Yes.
still run it. You can throw it. There's so many more options. So I love to see that. Like, he was basically said to Love, and I think versus Detroit also, he's like, you're winning this game. We're not taking the lead
Well,
and then turning to the run game.
absolutely. And he said as much on Monday where he said, I was kicking myself in that game where I basically took the ball out of Jordan's hands at the end. I think it was the Chargers game.
Yeah.
And he said, this time I'm going to put it in Jordan's hand. I mean, that was a legit, like, I'm going to do this because I don't want to be, I don't want to get into a shell. I don't want to be conservative. Now, you got to be smart about it, which is
Yeah.
what he's talking about when Jordan took that sack. Like, if it's not there, don't throw it away. We don't want an incompletion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he allowed Jordan to play.
Yeah.
And that again, if we're talking about you kind of pull back and look at this season, what it's about is those moments and getting Jordan into those moments so that
Yeah.
he has some banked reps, so he's familiar with those situations and he has experience in some of those situations where, okay, great, you have a year under your belt, but you've never been asked to go and do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Next season, when you're trying to like make a run, probably at the division and maybe the playoffs and who knows what else, like you've been in some of these kind of tough situations or these situations where you're the guy, we trust you with the ball in your hands at the end of these games.
Yeah. It's got to be giving Love a ton of confidence. And I think, I don't know if you saw his post on Instagram about an hour
It was
ago.
hard to miss it. You
Yeah.
better believe
So,
it. I love that he's embracing it. Come on
yeah,
now.
that's awesome. So, like, I mean, that's the guy who clearly right now is just feeling himself, feels really good about what he's doing, and just the understanding of the offense and just playing great. And this is just one example, but to me, this is like probably my favorite throw of Love's career, and probably the closest I feel like to Rodgers in terms of the accuracy of it. And it's the touchdown to Watson here, the second
Oh, this
one.
is such a good play.
I
Good
mean,
Lord.
oh, it's just the replacement. When he threw that ball and I saw the defender there, I'm like, he's going to
It looked like it was going to be an interception.
Yeah.
That
And
was my
then,
first kind of thought when you let it
yeah.
go. Agreed.
And then to see it just sail over his arms right to Watson. I mean, it's the confidence, though, to make that throw. There's no margin for error.
And kind of off platform too, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not something he's stepping into,
No.
Like that is he sees the rush and he knows where Watson's. I mean, look, here's the other thing. Identifying that matchup, knowing you got one-on-one because they are blitzing, right? And knowing and having the confidence to utilize your arm that way and put
Yeah.
it exactly where you need to. I mean, I don't want to say the Packers have done it again, but it looks like the Packers have done it again. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, it certainly does look that way. And I got to say, being in Chicago and like just hearing whether it's, it's at a bar or then like last night I was out watching the Jaguars games and there was a group of Bear fans and hearing like the dejection, like at halftime, they're showing the Packer highlights. And that's what you're saying. Like, I cannot believe that this is happening again. Like, we're really seeing this again. And I was just sitting there with this stupid smile on my face. Like,
it's the best.
It's so good. It really is. It's so much fun to see them like that. But, we talk about Love, obviously, amazing game, 267, 3 touchdowns, no picks. But we got to give a lot of credit to the defense, both in this game and for the last, 8 weeks, obviously.
Do we got to give a lot of credit to the defense? Is it
There we go.
required?
That's the perfect question. This is what the conversation I want, because it's weird. Like, somehow, like, the stats are showing them as like a top 10 defense. The last 8 weeks, no one scored more than 24. But yet, in games, they don't feel like some kind of dominant defense. And a lot of times,
No, they do not.
Situationally, it feels like they're just like terrible sometimes. Like, what are you doing? 3-man rush on 3rd and long, or light boxes and clear run situations. So, like, do you think this is the players performing in spite of Joe Barry? Or do you think Joe Barry
No, I don't think it's
kind of
that.
switch?
I think, he's got a philosophy, and the way they are going to go about things is the way they're going to do it, right? They're not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah.
I do think getting ahead these last 2 weeks has really helped. And the ability of the front to get after the quarterback, and the way they were so disciplined up front against Mahomes. Now, of course, he broke free a couple times, right?
Yeah.
I think he had a 15-yard run, a couple more outside of that, but he didn't really kill them outside the pocket,
Yeah.
especially
25
with his
rushing
arm,
yards.
because like he wasn't allowed to get outside the pocket. Like they were very disciplined, and they didn't allow him to step up. I mean, the work that Kenny and company did along the interior, Brooks, etc., to kind of coincide with everything Gary and Smith and Van Ness and company were doing outside, it was really disciplined. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's if you're the Packers, you know they don't have a world-beating receiving core, right? You're not worried about any one of those guys taking the game over. Kelsey, yes, he's a major weapon and he got his, but even he's not this year. At this point, it's
Yeah.
clear he's kind of working with all the injuries or maybe working through something. But man, Patrick can make all of that kind of disappear and make plays and make miracles happen, so to speak. And man, that's the one way the Chiefs could have probably maybe come into Lambeau and like put a hurt on the Packers, and they just wouldn't allow it to happen. And that's, you got to give Barry credit for that. You know, like you look at the results, the fact that they are keeping teams hovering around 20 points a game, right? Like I know right now they're ninth in the league as far as points allowed, and that's what
Yeah.
the name of the game is. Now, and you can argue about, which I most certainly will and do every watch party. I'm always yelling at the some of the choices that he makes, but you can't argue with the results. Yeah, they are there and they are plain to see. Now there's context within each and one of those games, and the approach, like you go back to Pittsburgh and is really maddening when you watch Pittsburgh just keep handing it off and throwing these short passes, and it's like it takes until halftime to have any kind of serious adjustment to it. Like you can quibble with that. I can argue about that. I get it. But at the end of the day, if you're an NFL team, and we've heard Matt talk about this a lot, and you're holding teams to 20 points or under, if you have a competent offense, you should be in every one of those games, and you should be winning most of them if you have a good offense, right? Earlier this season, they were doing that. They were holding teams to that threshold. The offense was just inept, you know?
Yeah.
So now you got the offense cooking, getting these leads, taking control of games. That plays into what Barry wants to do, which was, we all know that keep it all in front of you. We're going to rally and tackle. It's working, man. I hate it in the games. I curse it out. It's so frustrating at times, but again, you can't argue with the results.
Yeah. So I mean, it might be a bit early, but do you feel confident saying Joe Barry is the defensive coordinator next year?
I don't actually, because look, he's done great work as we've just discussed. They've done a really good job of limiting scoring, and for the most part, they've just faced kind of a murderer's row of quarterbacks, right? Between Herbert, Goff in that building especially has put up serious points throughout his tenure in Detroit, and then Patrick Mahomes. But now you go to New York on Monday night and Tommy DeVito lights you up.
Yeah.
You know, and then Baker Mayfield comes into Lambeau the next week and has a game. I think the conversation completely changes. And as much as I want to say, oh, that's not going to happen, I mean, they let Desmond Ridder march up and down the field on them. They let Kenny Pickett look competent. You know, it's like there's nothing that I take for granted when it comes to Joe Barry and the defense. Now, they go on a run here and they get to the playoffs and they're continuing to hold teams to, 20 and under, and they win all these games, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, probably Joe's back. I don't think there's much of a doubt there, but there's a lot of ball game left when it comes to these results and what these teams do to the Packers defense.
Yeah, no, for sure. It is kind of like scary because I feel like this whole year, or maybe after week 1, fine, there was like a ton of hype, but really after week 4, for sure, I think the idea of going into every game with like at least the expectation of winning kind of left, and it was like some games maybe we could, most games like we're probably going to lose. Now we're, like you said earlier,
we're back.
We're back. Like if we don't win every game now,
right.
Fury.
It's Armageddon, right?
Yeah.
Exact fury. Packers fan fury, right?
They will lose their mind. Yeah, Twitter will burn. Like if we go into half versus the Giants and it's like 13-7 Giants, it is going to.
Can't wait. I'm really excited, Eli. I gotta tell you, cannot wait.
It's going to be pretty cool. So, but yeah, the Chiefs game. Look, right now, like LaFleur always says, you got to take it one game at a time. That was a great game, and another great part of it afterwards, seeing whether on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, yours and Corey's reactions to some of the moments. Like the Keyshawn Nixon pick was a great one, but my personal favorite was the roughing, the unnecessary roughness
The
call, which is one of
absurd
the
roughing
most
call.
egregious calls I've ever seen. So
He's
your
in the field of
reaction?
play. He's
Yeah,
in the field of play. What are we
I
doing
lost my
here?
mind.
I don't
I
care if
lost.
it's Pat Mahomes. I don't care if it's God himself. If he's between the white lines, hit that guy. Like,
Yeah,
hit him.
it's just it was so bad, and like, sure, you know what? I'll give it to the Chiefs 100%. Valentine, that was passing interference, but you had the roughing call, and then MVS getting pulled backwards out of bounds, and they stopped the clock.
Yeah.
I thought I was in like some kind of dream. I was like, what is happening right now? So
What's amazing to me is how is it that the officials, we saw it last night in the Jaguars game on Monday Night Football, like they're fine, they're doing a good job all game long, and then when things get down to the wire,
yeah,
the NFL officials like throw off their civilian clothes and they get their cape on. They're like, "This is my time to shine." Like I don't understand how it is they can be so good and competent and fine and completely part of the woodwork for like 48, 58 minutes.
yeah,
Then you get to the final bits of these games and it's just like, "Oh, now it's ref time." Like
yeah,
no one's
really,
tuning in for you, dudes.
yeah.
Nobody.
And like, I would rather see refs, even though it would be annoying for 58 minutes for them to be too involved. But those last 2 minutes is when you let guys play. Like,
You
that is the
should.
last time you want a ref to be making a game
Hey,
deciding call.
and shout out to Mahomes because that was exactly his quote after the game. He was like,
Yeah.
"End of games, they let guys play. I'm about that."
I
Because
love
that's
that.
it. That
Yeah.
is it, right?
Yeah.
Like, let them play. Yes, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
1000%.
So, whatever, I'm sure, the refs will cost someone either a playoff spot or a playoff game. And
Again, Eli, I
it
can't
happens
wait.
every year.
I
Yeah, it
can't wait.
happens
I'm
every
really
year.
excited.
So. But there is actually, before we get to just some stuff moving forward, just some news, Packers news going on. But Aaron, do you have any update on Christian Watson's hamstring? I haven't really seen anything yet today.
Nothing concrete. I know Matt had said they didn't have any information. I'm not sure I buy that.
Yeah,
I know the preliminary kind of look, and I think that was Ian Rappaport who put it out there, more okay than not, which I think is the most hilarious turn of phrase.
yeah,
I'll be surprised if he's out there Monday night. That's
yeah,
the way I'm approaching it right now. We won't get a official injury report until Thursday this week because of the Monday night game. So got a little bit to wait on that one. But look, we all know this kid has now dealt with hamstring injuries to both hammies. He's re-aggravated one of them. There's zero reason to push it. So
yeah.
yeah, I'd be
I
very
agree.
surprised if he plays Monday.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously so unfortunate considering he's kind of doing what he did last year. Late
Here he
late part of the
comes, right?
season,
Yeah.
breaking out in a huge way. So yeah, obviously we want to see him as soon as possible, but no, like you said, there's no way you risk a real re-aggravation if he's not really ready to go Monday night. Let him, take an
100%.
extra week or two. So we'll see on Christian Watson. But some other Packers news out of today. First, they claimed David Long. Actually, was that yesterday? Might have been yesterday. But David Long,
It's officially today. Like
yeah,
the action, I believe the report was like late yesterday.
yeah. So waivers off the Panthers. I feel like I don't see the Packers using their waiver claim very often, so that kind of stuck out. But David Long, I mean, at least on the box score, and I know it's a lot deeper than that. Not a ton jumps off the board, but I guess we'll see. Maybe more of a special teams kind of signing. But what I thought was interesting was bringing in Kenyon Drake, releasing James Robinson. So should we expect Drake to be active and basically in Robinson? I mean, Robinson barely played,
Right.
but I feel like Kenyon Drake, even like last year, he had a couple of like decent games in Baltimore and then Arizona a bit. Do you think he can work in like with Patrick Taylor behind Dylan, or it's more of just a depth kind of move?
I think it's mostly a depth move. I think what you're always doing at this time of year, kind of all throughout the season, but especially kind of here down the stretch, is you're trying to churn that bottom of that roster. And Ron Wolf was the most kind of incredible guy about this. Like as far, I mean, you would bring in like just tons of dudes and have guys in and out all the time. Ted really wasn't quite that active with it, but I think Brian's a little bit more like Ron in that regard. And you're just I mean, I don't know if you saw the cut up that Justice put out there when they were first kind of dallying with James Robinson of all the cut ups from his preseason carries with the Giants.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a guy who, to my eyes, he's done. Like
yeah,
he's a vet, and you can count on him, but he's done. Like
yeah,
it really sucks because we all know how dynamic he was his rookie year in
yeah.
Jacksonville. But I think that tape coupled with his one carry on Sunday night, It's just there's no explosion there. There's a vet, sure you can count on him as far as that goes, but I think Kenyon Drake probably has a little bit more kind of upside in that regard, just a little bit more explosiveness, and I don't expect him to be involved in any significant way, but we've all seen. Look back at that Chargers game. I mean, you lost two backs in one drive.
Yeah,
Suddenly you're down to one guy, and then maybe handing the ball off to a tight end at some point if you need to in an emergency situation. But
yeah,
you're just kind of taking that floor of your roster and bumping it up a little bit. That's
absolutely.
essentially
Yeah.
what this signing is.
No, I like that. I also do like that LaFleur used Reed and Watson as kind of his, running. If you wanted to run around the
An
edge, he
auxiliary
basically
running game. Yeah.
exactly. I was trying to get that word and it wasn't coming. So thank you.
I'm here
Um,
for you, buddy.
yeah, because let's be real. AJ Dillon and Patrick Taylor aren't necessarily beating a ton of people to the edge. So
No, no, they are
I
not.
love that kind of creativity from LaFleur, which is really a ton of what we've been seeing from him. But you mentioned Gutekunst, another person that I have definitely had my issues with in the past. But the way he has completely reconstructed this offense over the last two drafts with Watson and Dobbs and Reed and Musgrave and Kraft, it's pretty incredible. Like I can't think of the last time I saw in the NFL a team replace their entire
You
skill group.
haven't. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
it's unprecedented.
It's unheard of,
Yes.
really, to have a completely new group of guys in a 2 season span that are all rookie or second year. And let's be real, I mean, they were showing a ton of potential. I mean, Dontavian Wicks also. Like, there is so much upside with this offense right now, with Love growing with these guys, where it really could be, that picture of Rodgers on the Sports Illustrated, with
Those dudes
Jordy and
around
Jennings.
him. Yep.
I mean, who knows? That could be Love with Reed and Dobbs and Watson and Wicks and Musgrave. Like, it is just I gotta give him the credit. And then also, it's not nothing to do with the receivers, but Carl Brooks, who you mentioned had a great game versus the Chiefs. I love I couldn't believe they got him in the fifth round. I know Bowling Green, the competition, but sometimes a guy just has it, and he
You're
showed that.
you're a player or you're
Yeah,
not, right?
you're a player or not exactly. And this guy, he is so much fun. Like I am so excited to see him next to Kenny Clark and Wyatt and Slayton for a long time.
What's funny about the receivers is the knock on Brian, I think justifiably so, was like he drafted. Obviously Jordan was the jury was out, but like any of the skill position players. It was coming into this year, even it was like, he hasn't had a really good track record there.
Yeah,
Like there's not like a lot of explosion guys, and I think the poster child for that is Amari Rodgers, right? Like you traded up in the third round, and what an absolute whiff, right? It's like Brian turned around and went, "Oh yeah, watch this," and just provided. I
yeah,
mean, It's so early. These guys have so much football ahead of them. You don't know who's going to rise, who's going to fall. Nothing's a given. It's almost never linear. Some guys will take a step back. Look no further than Devontae Adams. That first year, so much promise. Get to the second year, nothing but frustration. Get to the third year, now we're on our way, right?
yeah,
It's never a given. It's never linear, but so much upside here. And the production you've seen, not just from the receivers, but from this entire class. I mean, save Sean Clifford, who hasn't really been given an opportunity. Thank goodness. Let's knock
yeah,
wood, hope that doesn't come. But outside of him, everybody's contributed. I mean, even Malik Heath, who wasn't technically
yeah.
part of the draft class, has contributed
Incredible.
instantly. I mean,
Yeah,
you talk about unheard of. I can't
yeah,
remember. Now, part of it is opportunity, obviously, but man, I can't recall ever a draft class contributing this much so quickly in
yeah.
Green Bay, and it's just the start, man.
Yeah,
Excited.
it really is. It's very exciting to think just how young they are and how much potential they've shown. And I think you can kind of look at Watson similar to Devontae, where it's like this promising, amazing rookie year, starts to struggle year two. Obviously, Watson in year two doing, turning it around, which Devontae didn't really do in year two. But yeah, like the way in week 4 and 5, people were writing off Watson's career is just like maybe you should never do that for any fan base, but it's like this is a fan base that not even a decade ago just
Right.
did this with one of the
Right.
best receivers
Have
in
we?
the
I
NFL.
did. I'm so glad you brought that up because there was a moment like around week 4 or 5 where I was like, have we just, as a fan base, all suffered collective amnesia? Like,
Yeah,
if there is a fan base that should know, whether it was Jordy with drop, James Jones with tons of drops early in his career,
yeah,
Devontae having his horrific second season or just horror-filled second season. It's like we've been through this a number of times. Can we have just a little patience and give these guys a little bit of grace to let them figure it
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, I'm sure preaching patience on Packers Twitter really going to
Yeah,
go
I
over.
know. I know. I'm lost cause. I'm aware.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is probably the case. But just looking ahead now, so we've got Giants Monday night, Bucks, Panthers, Vikings, Bears. I mean, never want to get ahead of yourself, but at least on paper, obviously a very winnable schedule, at least most of those games. So at this point, 6-6, the seventh seed, kind of just broad, don't have to get too detailed, but like, how do you see, these last five games going? Like, I mean, do you think they ride this momentum into the playoffs, or maybe we miss it, but, at least we showed that this is a team that is going to compete in the future?
I think we'll learn a lot on Monday night how they react to being kind of favored, the expected to win, etc. Because look, that's going to be the case probably down the stretch here for most of these games, if not all of them. And I think they have all the ability and all the capability of winning every one of these games. There's no doubt about it. But hey, this is the 2023 Green Bay Packers. They had a number of games early in the year where they should have won, but one might say they played down to their competition. Now, these last couple weeks, they've played up to their competition and beat them and shown up and done what they're needed to do. So now what they need to do is take care of business,
Yeah,
And that's why I mean, like, if they go into New York and just take care of the Giants, then I'll be on board with the idea of, yeah, we're making a run, we're going to the playoffs. But right now, I have major questions as far as, like, look, we were just talking about Joe Barry, right? Like, was Saquon Barkley goes off for 220 yards, which you can't sit here and tell me is an impossibility,
of course.
Like,
I was
so
sitting in traffic today and I was like thinking about that game, and I'm like just in my head picturing Barkley 4 or 5 yards, 7 yards, 12 yards. And I'm like, that cannot happen Monday night, or I'll rip my hair out.
I mean, it very well could. So, like, and even if that happens, like, what are they able to do off of it? And maybe that's all they do. And DeVito throws 3 picks, and it's fine. You never
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I don't know. I think, like I said, I think Monday night tells us a lot.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big game. It's so weird. I didn't even realize till I heard it on the radio. There's another Monday night game
First time ever where they're
simultaneous.
simultaneous. They've done games like one starts
Yeah,
early and one goes late, but this is the first time ever they've had 2 games at the same time.
yeah. It's like, all right, let's take the fun of Monday Night Football and ruin
Just
it.
crush it, right?
Crush it.
Exactly.
Makes no sense to me.
No.
But I'm sure for whoever wants to watch the Dolphins and Titans, enjoy that game. But we'll be watching Packers Giants. Should
We'll be
be a
watching
fun
the
one.
real game. Exactly.
The real Monday night game. But Aaron, before we go, first off, again, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. This was an awesome conversation. But just anything you want to plug, any message, to Packers Nation out there, anything you got before we head out.
I'll just reiterate what we were just talking about regarding patience. And here's the thing: Jordan Love is outstanding right now, and he is seeing the field really well and playing at a high level. There are going to be tough times. They're still coming. Like, there are going to be stretches where, they struggle as an offense. He struggles as a quarterback. I implore people not to get back on the, oh, well, now they're going to have to, like, maybe look at the draft or what have you, blah, blah, blah. There's still going to be games this season where he's going to have moments. He's going to have stretches, series even, like, where it's just not working. Maybe it's not coming to him, whatever.
Yeah.
Just be patient. Like, it doesn't have to be a referendum every time he throws the football, which is certainly where we were at back in October. Feels like that's faded a little bit, but as soon as struggles reappear, which they always do, and they undoubtedly will, just have a little bit of patience and a little bit of grace, because it really looks like Jordan is the guy, and
Yeah.
you got to allow him to struggle through those tough times, because you've seen now what he's capable of, and he
Yeah.
still hasn't hit his peak.
Exactly. I fully agree. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was talking to Pat McAfee today, and he said, about Love, like, don't be too quick to crown someone, just like you're not too quick to bash someone, because if you turn around now, it's like, oh, Jordan Love, he's here, he's amazing, and then one bad thing happens, you start freaking out. Like, this guy's a proven All-Pro quarterback. It's like, it's been great, but he's still young. He's still in his first year as a starter, so don't overreact to an interception or a missed pass. So that's just what's going to happen. But
Yep.
yeah. So again, Aaron, it was awesome having you on. Everyone at the bottom of the screen, as you can see, make sure to follow Aaron on Twitter. I mean, I'm sure you already are, but at Aaron Nagler. And then, of course, give the show a follow as well at the Pack_show. And you can find me at Book of Eli _NFL. everyone who tuned in. We really appreciate it. Aaron, I'm sure we will talk again soon. For everyone, go Pack Go. Have a good night.
Go Pack.